Boss side of the universe. Influence. Socialists throw Democratic Party into chaos. Fox News is covering socialism and socialists every single day. I'm glad that the movement is growing, so much so that Fox News moved on from doing this just to me, but instead to the broader socialist movement. Okay, what is this? This is a scandalizing remix?
Diving headfirst into...
What the fuck is this? Okay, chatter. All right, we'll look at it later, all right?
Well, House Dems took this watershed vote this week to cut assistance to Israel. More than 100 lawmakers voted in favor of this measure that blocks funding to America's closest security ally in the Mideast. Joining us now, Josh Kraushaar, Fox News radio political analyst.
That's
Josh,
crazy. That's crazy. Wait, first of all, that's what Josh looks like? This is my first time seeing what this motherfucker looks like. I've only seen his little PFP on Twitter. This is the primary op. AIPAC stooge, Jewish insider reporter Josh Kraushaar. Goddamn. Goddamn.
This was alarming, to put it mildly. Take a look from Democrats.
Yeah, wait, did he write this article? No, Gabby Deutsch is another op of mine. She wrote this article. AIPAC ends fundraising for endorsees who voted to cut off Israel aid. Wah, wah. Good. Great. Great. Put the flag on the ground. It's the American flag, baby, not the Israeli one. Okay? AIPAC ends fundraising for endorsees who voted to cut off Israel aid. This is Jewish Insider, where Josh Kraushaar writes for. It is basically the propaganda apparatus for AIPAC. It's AIPAC's own fake newspaper. Democratic Socialist top MAGA candidates among voters in CNBC's All America poll. Yeah, maybe that's why they're hitting the DSA candidates. I saw that. Yeah. Democratic Socialists and the movement is more popular than MAGA and more popular than Trump, by the way. Okay? Interesting stuff coming out of these polls.
Democratic Rep. Adam Smith, who says, I am deeply concerned about the tactics used by those on the far left to advocate cutting off aid to Israel. To date, my family and I have had our home vandalized. A fire has been set in my driveway. Neighbors' lives have been disrupted in the middle of the night. Town halls meant to be forums for dialogue have been shut down, and a staff member physically...
It's so funny that all these guys have to self-flagellate to be like, I'm voting to cut off all aid to Israel in this symbolic vote that I'm placing, knowing full well that it's not going to pass. But also, I just need you to know, like, I'm really sorry about it, okay? And people have gotten totally out of hand. They're hurting me. They're hurting my family. Please, you know? Yeah, Sarah Rodriguez dropped out. I know. I got that. I got that on the docket. Don't worry. We're going to talk about Wisconsin in a little bit. There's a lot going on in both the Michigan race and the Wisconsin race. If I were a Zionist, I stop and think about how the fact that politicians believe that attacking Israel is good for them politically might be a sign that Israel needs to change its strategy. Yep. It's okay, we know, and it's nothing new, says Saul Sadka. Lucky we have an army now. Strait of Hormuz is closed, by the way, says Sammy Gold. Now, luckily we have an army now is, again, more of the same. Like, this guy literally read this, okay? He read this criticism and then immediately turned around and said, nope, no notes. Gonna do the same thing that we've been doing. Bitch, what army? You don't have an army without American aid. You don't have an army without American support. You know what you have? Criminals, okay? Without American political cover at the international level, for example. You know what you have? You don't have an army. You have a bunch of terrorists. You have a bunch of criminals that are doing war crimes, which is the truth, by the way. The fuck? I guess that's the door. Jesus Christ. Terrifying. M is real high.
Assaulted. Yikes.
Yeah, Jillian. I mean, this shows you the rising power of the extreme left in Democratic Party politics, and that you had 103 Democrats, some of whom were actually pro-Israel supporters for most of their careers. But as Adam Smith said, they were facing political threats from the far left. And in Adam Smith's case, he was facing the threat of physical violence against him in order to cast this as part of a pressure campaign in casting this vote against Israel and its funding at a time of great need. And they're facing security threats all over the region. So, I mean, it shows you just how much influence the socialist movement of the Democratic Party, winning these big primaries in New York and Colorado last month, it shows how much influence they're having within the party. I will say, though, that when it comes to the general election politics, the mainstream politics, almost all of the Democrats that are running for the Senate in swing states or in swing districts that are facing general elections against strong Republican candidates, almost all of them actually voted with Israel and voted to
Good. Yeah. No, that's definitely pro-Israel politics wins in swing states. Yeah, the other side of the story that Josh is, of course, cleverly not mentioning is the fact that those candidates, he's also talking about fucking Haley Stevens, obviously, here as well. Those candidates are getting a fuck ton of money from AIPAC. Okay? They're not stronger contenders and being, openly pro-Israel is good politics, especially the wing and swing states in the way that he's trying to imply here. It's just being a friend to Israel allows Israel to buy that seat. That's it. That's the whole point. And most Americans do recognize that nowadays. So it's not looking too good for AIPAC.
To continue the aid to Israel. So it tells you that this is a product of the far left really getting its foothold in Democratic Party politics.
Fearing perhaps, a spread to the Senate, as Senator John Fetterman said this earlier in the week. Want to get your reaction?
I literally said that on your network at least a week or two or more ago. Now, I believe that the Democratic Party is going to become more anti-Israel. You make that official. You make that part of our platform. That's my red line in the Democratic Party. They're not just, I'm just pro-Palestinian. I'm deeply anti-Israel. They campaign with garbage like Hassan Piker that's pro-Hamas.
I mean, obviously, that generated a lot of headlines when he originally said it, but he's standing by it even more so after this shock vote this week.
Yeah, look, John Fetterman is in the perennial swing state of Pennsylvania. He understands how politically toxic.
Dude. This is the funniest. Like, this is Fox News, okay? They're not exactly known for being truthful. They're not exactly known for, insightful commentary on what's actually taking place in American politics. But this is exceptional, okay? This is an exceptional operation of lying and claiming that something that is on fire is actually not on fire at all. Okay? The notion that pro-Israel politics is popular in swing states is a lie. Okay? It's gone. It's over. It is the most over. It's dead. I mean, Chris Rabb obviously proved this in Philadelphia, but regardless, Summer Lee as well. But regardless, it's not even just about that. It's not even just about Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and like cities. By and large, pro-Israel politics is so unbelievably toxic. Okay? It's gone. It's done. It's so bad that all of the money that AIPAC is dumping to the remaining pro-Israel politicians, the ones that are loyal, will eventually backfire on those politicians. It's already started to backfire. There are examples of this in like upstate New York with that Democrat that voted to censure Rashida Tlaib back in the day, literally refunding AIPAC donations. Okay? Anti-Israel politics is not only good politics, it's good policy. And everyone knows it. AIPAC knows it too. That's precisely the reason why they never talk about their stooges being pro-Israel. Pat Ryan is who I was talking about. Thank you, chatter. AIPAC knows this as well. That's precisely the reason why they have to do these shell corporations and move money around to hide the fact that it's coming from an Israel-related super PAC. And not only that, but also none of those ads ever feature the candidate's position on Israel. It's gotten so bad that AIPAC in the past would literally do everything in their power to deny you your seat if you were even slightly critical of Israel, whether it be critical of Netanyahu or critical of anything that Israel is doing. Nowadays, they're even giving allowances to their politicians to criticize Benjamin Netanyahu. Haley Stevens is a fantastic example of this. Haley Stevens is probably one of the biggest pro-Israel stooges in a long list of people who demonstrate absolute fealty to this foreign country. And yet Haley Stevens has now been given the bandwidth to make it seem like she's Israel critical, even though she's gotten $40 million in ad spend from Israel PACs, AIPAC, United Democracy Project, and numerous others. That's how bad things have gotten. So Josh Kraushaar can keep denying that reality all day, every day. Josh Kraushaar and many others can say, oh, it's just anti-Semitism. That's the reason why people are critical of Israel, or eventually they're going to give up on this, and eventually they're going to move. They're not moving. As I like to repeatedly explain to people, today is the day that Israel will be the most popular. Tomorrow, Israel will be less popular than it is today. Yesterday, Israel was more popular than it is today. It's done. Every day that goes on, Israel becomes less and less popular. Pro-Israel politics becomes more toxic. It is a litmus test for a politician's responsiveness to the needs of the base. Are they going to place the interests are they going to place moneyed interests first and foremost in the way that they legislate, or are they going to put the working class at the center of their politics? That's what it is. Palestine has replaced wokeness as a progressive litmus test. Even if you're center-left Democrat who's not particularly pro-Palestine, this should be seen as a good thing. It's a better litmus test than wokeness, since being pro-Palestine/Israel skeptical is more popular among Americans and therefore isn't an electoral liability the way wokeness is, says Shadi Hamid. There is some truth to that for sure. There's more bipartisan there's more bipartisan approval for anti-Israel politics than there is for like whatever wokeness has been defined as. There's a level of truth to it. Wokeness can be, the problem with wokeness is that, one, there's too much negative polarization against it. That's number one. And number two, wokeness can be defined as like the cynical ways in which Haley Stevens says Abdul El-Sayed is misogynistic. Like that's technically quote unquote woke. Okay. Wokeness can also imply, things that we all agree on, that we should leave trans people alone, that we shouldn't interfere in the medical decisions that Americans are making, and that should be kept between a doctor and a patient, right? That could also mean wokeness, right? That's a perfectly normal position, perfectly popular position, as a matter of fact. But it just depends on how you frame it, depends on how you talk about it.
This is to the overall public and certainly to independents and Republicans. It's also very important to the Senate politics as well, because John Fetterman said this week in part of that clip, he could switch parties if the Democratic Party becomes an anti-Israel party.
No, that will definitely improve Israel's chances, I think. By and large, Americans consider this to be a sinister force, a malign force on American politics. People that have tremendous power, people that engage in this like shadowy backroom decisions to basically overthrow American democracy, the democratic process. Certainly doing something like that, or even threatening something like this, would greatly improve Israel's popularity amongst Americans. Definitely. Yeah. This will show them. That'll show them. This will make people definitely less anti-Semitic, for example, if that's something you care about. They'll be like, oh, yeah, this fucking brain-dead loser switched parties because Israel is what he cares about and not fucking Pennsylvania. Wow, I sure have reconsidered my decision on my opinions on this foreign country. I like it a lot now. Is that what you think is going to happen? That's what you suspect is going to happen? People are just going to be like, yeah, well, none of this stuff matters at the end of the day because here is the sinister reality. Democracy is fake, okay? We don't have a real democratic process in this country because if your elections are bought and sold, if they're sold to the highest bidder, then, of course, our politicians do the bidding of people who pay for those seats rather than the actual voters who go out and vote. And their needs are secondary to the needs of corporate profits or the interests of a foreign nation state like Israel, which spends a good deal amount of money to ensure that there is a level of loyalty to the needs of this foreign country as opposed to the needs of the masses. That's just the reality, okay? And that's part of the reason why these guys can just posture this way, right? That's part of the reason why Zionists can go on national television and lie however they see fit, or even go out and threaten the democratic process altogether. It's a threat. It's basically Josh Kraushaar saying, there's not really much you can do about it. We can just create this totally concocted false narrative, and people won't know any better. Well, things are changing, and people do know better. Or at least that's what I've seen so far on the ground.
And as we know, like if the Senate math is very close, if Democrats win a few seats in the Senate in the midterms, John Fetterman could prevent them from actually winning control of the upper chamber if he switches parties, given the Democratic Party's anti-Israel turn. That's what he's saying right there. He's sending a clear note to his party. We can't go off the deep end ideologically. And if you do, I'm actually going to consider leaving the Democratic Party myself.
Okay, Josh. Oh no, what will we do without Josh's vote? Here's a great example, by the way. U.S. Representative Haley Stevens is asked by W. Detroit.
Participating in out here, I'm transparent. People are frustrated.
She's asked by W. Detroit
and witnessing in
God
Michigan
damn it! What the fuck is going
communities
on? Jesus Christ! She's asked by W. Detroit how she would increase transparency in U.S. campaign finance laws. Her response will shock you.
Look, I'm out here. I'm transparent. People are frustrated. I just put out a television ad saying I'm the only non-millionaire running for Senate. And you're so right, Russ.
What is this?
Just talked to some of these leading campaign finance reform organizations, and I told them, I said directly, I got an A grading from them, and it's true. We've got a problem in this country. We need courageous leadership. We need the laws to change. Mike Rogers, he's going along with Donald Trump's schemes.
But wouldn't it be more courageous to not take that money in a primary? I understand that you need to make money, or you need to have all the money you can in general election.
Russ, you know how our election laws work. The thing is that we have to pass the laws to stop dark money. It is not about whether I say it or not as a point of altruism. This is actually about changing our laws. Look, I've seen this before in my races. I had League of Conservation Voters, great organization. I'm so proud of them. One day I'm watching the TV and they got a nice ad up for me. I think this was like in 2021 or something.
Yeah, it's just totally happenstance, totally random stroke of luck, totally a random accident that Israel and AIPAC has dumped $40 million into this race. Of course, Ryan Grimm asks a very salient, very important point, raises a very salient point. After/if Stevens wins the nomination, AIPAC will obviously drop her like a rock. Why would they waste money when she and Mike Rogers will vote the same way? Neera Tanden knows this and doesn't care. More important for her to block Abdul and then lose the general. That is the fucking reality. Because Haley Stevens is not being carried right now by her charisma, by her campaigning, by the real mobilization that she's been able to implement on the ground. It's not the policies. If you were to ask anybody what the fuck Haley Stevens stands for, I don't think many of her supporters would have a reasonable answer. They just say, oh, she's reliable. Obama likes her. She's worked for Michigan for many, many years. If you were to be like, what is a policy that she is going to implement that you like, that you are voting for? you would have no answers. Okay? Most people have no answers for this question. If you ask Abdul, you say, money out of politics, money in your pocket, Medicare for all, right? Babies, not bombs. These are the easy to understand, definable policy positions that Abdul al-Sayed has that he's communicating very effectively, right? I know it's oversimplified and a lot of fucking dumbass technocratic neoliberals get mad at that shit, but that's literally the oversimplified message of build the wall. It's very important to be able to define yourself with your policies in a way that is digestible, in a way that is easy to understand. So just remember that. So Abdul's doing a great job with that, right? So there's nothing in the tank for Haley Stevens of that sort. She's literally being carried by television ads. That's it. To the tune of $54 million. So what happens when that money goes away? Because from the perspective of a lot of these corporate PACs, they could see, because they're companies, they have no loyalty, they have no ideological predisposition. When they realize, and I'm sure making this calculation already, when they realize, if in the unlikely scenario that Haley Stevens wins the primary, that it's her versus Mike Rogers, both are going to be servants of the same corporate interests, they're not going to spend money on Haley Stevens. So what do you do then? What do you do then? What will the Democrats do then? Are they going to exhaust their resources that they could be using elsewhere for a campaign that cannot fundraise, for an uncharismatic candidate, for a candidate that most likely has, given her AIPAC affiliations, most likely is going to be harmed in the general election by a lot of voters? There will be tremendous depressive consequences on turnout if Haley Stevens is the candidate. Okay? What do you do then? He got your ass, bro. Okay, we're going to talk about Haley Stevens right now. I don't want to talk about Osei cooking my ass with slander, but we'll get there in a second. Yeah, Hamid Bendas says, this Michigan strategist is actually fully aware that Haley Stevens has a serious general election fundraising liability because she's fully reliant on AIPAC. Why is everyone not talking about this? Meanwhile, with fundraising an indicator of excitement for a candidate, Stevens has been consistently lagging others, Selleck said. If I were a supporter of hers, your stream is on Fox News right now? Wait, what? What are they talking about? Let's tune in. Maine's buffet of bad options.
Well, but the interesting thing is that shows the problem they have. The left can't be satisfied, and no one else could possibly be satisfied. It's why I think Susan Collins is going to have a very successful campaign this year. Nobody's happy except people who are sane, and I think they might emerge as the winner.
Did they post me joking and saying these guys don't have a lot of charisma? Oh, fuck. I got to stop talking, dude. I hate that shit. Fuck you, Fox News. We're busting out the Troy Yoda, folks. Troy Jackson is our boy. Anyway, as I was saying, you dumbass, what do you mean? I'm going to be fucking honest. If I see something, I'm going to say something. It was funner when you weren't known. Yeah. Politico is the reason, actually. Michael Cruz. Hassan Piker's take on the new Maine Senate candidates. They're all so Rizless. Has anybody watched a Hassan Piker stream? The guy's dumb as a doornail. He's blue MAGA. Nobody cares what this loser thinks. Stop being weird, Cruz. He means they're all so non-rapist, which is why he's sad. No, you know what I realized? I can get these guys to be fucking pro Troy Jackson by just saying Troy Jackson sucks. I think I could get every single liberal on this website to ride for Troy Jackson because they just genuinely don't care about anything. They just hate me so much that I think they would be in favor of Troy Jackson. I like Troy Jackson. Or rather, I should say, Troy Jackson is too centrist for my taste. Wink. Anyway, where were we? Oh, meanwhile, with fundraiser, we're talking about Haley Stevens and her her lack of ability to fundraise, her significant issues with fundraising. If I were a supporter of hers, that might make me a little nervous, Selleck said of Stevens. In the super PAC era, her campaign may not feel the necessity to raise a lot if they're watching 26 million, and we're only on July 15th. There must be a lot more to come. Still, it could spell danger for her in the general election if this heavy spending in the primary is just based on stopping El Sayed, Selleck added. Then what happens next? Yeah, Milwaukee. Holy shit. There's crazy stuff happening in Milwaukee. There's crazy stuff happening in Wisconsin, in the Wisconsin gubernatorial. We're going to get into that in a second. Here's another example of this, by the way. Sri Thanedar running against our boy in Detroit, or the incumbent. Hopefully, we're going to unseat him with Democratic Socialist endorsed Donovan McKinney. Sri Thanedar's campaign reported losing $630,000 after investing $3.7 million in crypto. Amid those losses, AIPAC donors stepped in and gave Thanedar 2/3 of the money he raised last quarter, ahead of a challenge from Dem Socialist Donovan McKinney. It's unbelievable. The level of corruption is fucking insane. A similar level of corrupt politicking is taking place in Wisconsin. We're gonna get into that in a second. Last thing I wanted to point to with Michigan before we get into Wisconsin politics was going to be about Abdul El-Sayed. So Abdul El-Sayed, the race in Michigan is heating up. Haley Stevens has gotten the signature centrist endorsement of Jim Clyburn. Who could forget when Jim Clyburn endorsed Andrew Cuomo against Zohran Mamdani? You know the deal. Congressional Black Caucus PAC has also thrown some money in the race, or is slated to throw some money in the race. Congressional Black Caucus PAC is also, basically another subsidiary of AIPAC at this point. So that's where we're at in the Michigan race. Abdul El-Sayed did something that I don't think he should have done, but he did it anyway, and I respect his decision. If you recall yesterday or the day prior, I talked a little bit about Haley Stevens and like how I was starting to get a little worried that people on the internet memeing Haley Stevens was, about like clowning on Haley Stevens about the way she sounds, was eventually going to shift the attention away from how bad of a candidate she is for other reasons, Israel-related reasons, and instead present her as a more sympathetic figure. Liberals have been signaling that they're trying to do this already, right? Liberals have already been doing this where they're like, oh, Haley Stevens, she's always the victim of bullying, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Abdul El-Sayed came out and released this Bernie Bro style apology. Wait, what? Is the post been deleted? No, it's still there. Okay. He said, it's become impossible to ignore the way that people online make fun of my opponent for things that we have nothing to do with, their policies or politics. It's unkind and unhelpful. If you support me, please stop. Now, it's a good way to not really apologize and to also not take ownership over this, but it doesn't matter because the media is going to use this to their advantage regardless. He doesn't actually say, hey, my fans are doing this, you should stop. Right? Focus on the issues. Congresswoman Stevens has welcomed corporations and special interests to support her. She votes to send our money abroad while Michiganders struggle. She's bought by DTE, Blue Cross, Big Tech, and Big Pharma who pick our pockets. AIPAC, Trump-aligned billionaires, and corporate PACs are spending $50 million to support her. Those are the issues. We don't need to be unkind, to be honest. So here's the problem. Okay? Here's the problem. Now that Abdul said this, I'm of two different minds on this, because on the one hand, I do agree with him on principle. I do agree with him on principle that, like, it's better to focus on Haley Stevens' policies than to just say that she has, like, a weird voice. And I've done plenty of that myself. I do unironically find her voice to be not necessarily a burden. I do find it endearing, as I've talked about extensively. I like, people in this community have yelled at me over it over and over again. Okay. You brought this up during your LBC interview. If you spend time apologizing for every little thing, people will focus on what you're apologizing for instead of the real issues. Yes.
Couple of weeks. I mean, he's receiving, as you might imagine, ferocious.
Yes, that's my policy. If I'm doing crisis PR for a candidate, this is the advice I would give them. Don't apologize for shit that you're not responsible for, and don't apologize to anybody but your base. Here's why. Because these people are demons. The people in the media, the people who are pro-Israel, they're not going to take this and go, wow, thankfully Abdul El-Sayed has said something. They didn't do this with Bernie Sanders either. They bullied Bernie endlessly, far more than Abdul has been on the receiving end of, like, why won't you stop your fans from bullying Haley Stevens for her voice or anything like that? Okay? Here's the thing. On the one hand, he's right. Focusing on the issues is far better for the race and far better in general. It's the smart thing to do because that's what people are going to decide on. They're not going to focus on her voice when they're making a decision on who they vote for, right? That's number one. Number two, even though he, like, calls it out and hopefully will try to shift the focus back to the issues, most people are going to see this as an admission. Most people are going to say, you have recognized that your fans, led by you, are doing this. Here's one of two things people will do. One, they'll turn around and they'll pick whoever they can to be like, this is a surrogate of yours. This person is your best friend. He's made fun of Haley Stevens. What do you have to say for yourself? That's number one. Number two, they'll say, how dare you now come out and apologize for this when you yourself have done this? You said Haley Stevens is an empty suit bought and paid for by AIPAC who can't string two sentences together only last week. How dare you now come out and apologize? You are responsible for it. And all you've now done is take ownership over something that is largely outside of your control, that isn't really that significant of an issue at all. Because at the end of the day, the other side of this statement that is true is the fact that nobody gives a fuck about how Haley Stevens sounds. No one is making a decision on that, right? Here are the results. Neera Tandon, this is a gracious and smart move. Out-of-state influencers who mock Haley for her Michigan accent is in truly sexist tropes are clearly hurting the El-Sayed campaign. Good on him to try and stop it, making it seem like this is actually an issue. Wrote earlier this summer about how the online bullying of Haley Stevens was taking a toll. I brought up the NRSC's post mocking her. Had they gone too far? They're bullying me, she asked. Is it in my face? Is it my clothes? I'm just getting bullied, she said, like I was in middle school. There's more. Shannon Watts already digging in the knife. You know, weakness like this, these imbeciles immediately smell blood and start pressuring you to concede on other fronts. See? Shannon Watts, I appreciate this acknowledgement that your supporters have been behaving cruelly online on your behalf, including your friend Hassan Piker. Question, is your campaign giving or has it given any money to social media influencers or the agencies that are mocking her? These people are not your friends. These people are not even people, okay? I'm sorry. They're not. They are hatchet men, okay? They are operating with one goal and one goal only, victory. They don't give a fuck about any of this shit. They are bloodless. They have already decided to join forces with a candidate that has gotten $40 million from AIPAC. a lobby whose only interest is to continue the murdering of children with American tax dollars. Do not concede to them on any issue. That's my attitude. It's not that big of a problem at the end of the day. Abdul is very charismatic. Okay, he can get around it regardless. He felt like it was important to address it. Okay, he felt like it was important to address it and to say, look, you guys have to focus on the real issues that matter. Why is Haley Stevens getting funded by AIPAC? Right? That's what matters. He's right about that. Even I brought it up the other day, if you remember. For the record, they are horrible monsters who have been not so subtly implying that Abdul al-Sayed is a misogynistic Muslim, aggressive Muslim man, aggressive towards women as Muslims are known to be. Maybe he hates Israel because he's Muslim, as Muslims are known to be anti-Semitic. So they do it on both ends, right? He's talking to you, not us. If he wanted to talk to me, he could talk to me, you know. He has many different methods of reaching out to me, you dumb fuck. This is not an issue with Hassan. This is a Twitter issue. It is, but Twitter has the capacity to move the media because it's the news editor of all of these mainstream outlets because the journalists are still here. Okay? He got so much praise for that post, it doesn't mean anything. Because what is yet to come has not happened already. It will happen. Going forward, they will take this as a tacit admission that Abdul fucked up. They're not going to look at this and say, wow, here you have a guy who's like, you know, who's seen the bullying, is not saying that his fans are doing it because there's no guarantee. There's no admission there whatsoever. And he wants to put an end to it and focus on what matters. They're not going to do that. They're going to say you took ownership over your fans, and then going forward, anyone that ever says anything about Haley Stevens, they're going to be like, see, your misogynistic Bernie Bros style fan base is harassing a woman. Luckily, we only have, 2 more weeks to worry about this shit? Or not even. Luckily, we have 1 more week to worry about this shit. Because after the primaries are over, after the primaries are done, you can unload on Mike Rogers all day, every day. Abdul has already been pulling his punches. It's 2.5 weeks, and we don't have to worry about misogyny allegations any longer for simply running against an AIPAC stooge. What is this? People who are scared of online mobs have no business in politics. Grow some thicker skin, says Neera Tandon. So if you're a popular Dem who doesn't want El-Sayed to win, your choices are 1, staying neutral, burning AOC Barnstorm. Yeah. They're doing this pincer move to lock down black support while peeling off what they can of white women, and you're not going to defend against that by pretending that your voters are being sexist online and doing apology theater. It projects weakness and makes this seem real. Yeah, I agree with that. Never play by their rules. Never play by their rules because these people not only wrote the rules, but they will always weaponize it against you. They never have to play by those rules. Because if Abdul came out and was like, I feel devastated by the Islamophobic attacks I've received since the first day that I started this campaign. I simply want what's best for Michiganders. I've given my life to Michigan. I was a public servant in Michigan. All I want is to help as many people as possible, give people health care, and communicate their desires better than someone who's getting $50 million from AIPAC can. Because they're not getting $50 million for no reason. Nobody gives someone $50 million for no reason, right? If he were to turn around and do that, everyone would be like, boo-hoo, shut the fuck up, you terrorist. That's it. These people only care about victory. That's it. They will do anything and everything they can. They will do anything and everything they can to achieve it. Specifically, victory over their left flank, by the way. Not over their right flank. Not over the Republican Party, but specifically victory over the Bernie-crats. Okay? In any case, it is what it is. It's not the end of the world. And Abdul is too nice of a guy, in my opinion. Ironically, you brought this up during the Kamala campaign and it was a savvy point. Yes, I've said this to everyone. It's free ball. It's free ball, always.